So the other day, I was chatting to a client that I've been coaching for a few months, and they paid me a really nice compliment. They said, "Dean, I really like how you always look so put together. You're always wearing such great suits." I said, "I actually haven't worn a suit in months, and not once have I worn a suit during any one of our meetings." But that's when it clicked. You see, most men don't actually know the difference between a suit and a sports coat or a blazer, and because of that, they often feel either overdressed, underdressed, or just feel a bit awkward without really knowing why. Take a look at these three images, for example. Can you tell which one is the suit jacket, the blazer, or the sports coat? Let me know down in the comments below if you know which one is which. So I decided to make this video because personally, I wish a video like this had existed when I first started dressing better. Something that clearly explains not just the differences between these jackets, but also terms like off the rack, made to measure, and bespoke. So that's exactly what we're doing today. So it's maybe easiest if we move from the more casual jacket to the more formal jacket. And in that sense, we better start with the sports coat because this is where most of the confusion begins. It might surprise a lot of people to hear that the sports coat, sometimes called the sports jacket, is actually considered smart casual in menswear. I say surprising because if you're just getting into dressing well and looking after your appearance, you might look at a jacket like this and think, that's a suit jacket. And visually, you're not wrong. They can look very similar, but here's the key distinction. A suit jacket is designed to be worn only with matching trousers. A sport coat, on the other hand, it's designed to be worn on its own. Now, I don't mean without any trousers, just trousers made from a different material. Now, there are some helpful clues that usually point towards whether something you're looking at is a sports coat. They tend to be a little bit more variety in the fabric, the color, the pattern compared to suits. Fabrics are often a bit sturdier or more textured. Things like tweed, corduroy, hopsack, heavier wool blends, in other words. Again, these aren't strict rules, but they are common indicators that what you're looking at is a sports jacket. Now, personally, I'm a big fan of sports coats because they sit in that sweet spot of looking sharp, but it doesn't seem like you're trying too hard. Take this grey sport coat here. This is probably the most casual one that I own. Okay, and why do I say that? Well, because it's got patch pockets, it's got elbow patches, and a fairly bold pattern. There's actually two patterns going on here. We have the herringbone, but also a check layered on top. Now, if I want to dress this down for a more casual environment, I'll pair it with a pale blue or maybe a white Oxford button-down shirt, dark denim jeans, and some version of a Chelsea boot. But if I wanted to dress this sport coat up, maybe make a few modifications to it, what would I do to make this coat a little bit more formal? Well, I would change the patch pockets for vented pockets. I would remove the elbow patches and choose a subtler pattern. Maybe get rid of the check and just keep the herringbone. If you wanted to upgrade the outfit to more formal, throw the denim away, bring in some flannel trousers, maybe smarten up the shoes, add a tie. Same category of garment, completely different effect. One of my personal favorites is actually this brown sports coat because I think it gives off a really nice academic vibe. Also happens to work very well with my hair color, dark brown, and my eyes, which are green. Doesn't hurt. Now, the reason sports coats are such a good starting point is that they instantly improve your silhouette. They complement your frame and they make you look more intentional, more professional, but without the stiffness of a full suit. So when should you wear one of these? Well, a sports coat, if you style it well, it signals casual confidence and approachability rather than authority that would come from something closer to a suit. And that's why, in my opinion, sports coats, they work really well for dinner dates, social events, casual, professional environments. So if you're going out on a date with your partner, throw on a sports coat. If you're meeting up with some friends for some drinks at a bar restaurant, sports coat's a great go-to. Or maybe Christmas lunch, Christmas dinner with your work colleagues, sports coat can strike a really nice vibe there. Okay, next up is the blazer, which sits very neatly between the sports coat and the suit in terms of formality. And there are a few origin stories behind the blazer. One claims that the style originated from the jackets worn by members of the Lady Margaret Boat Club of St. John's College in Cambridge. I believe that dates back to 1825. These were not quite the jackets you are anticipating or imagining. These were a dazzling red color, suggesting their wearers were on fire, hence the term blazers. They could be simple in one color like red, but were often striped in high contrast colors. not really what we think of today when we hear the word blazer. So let me tell you the other origin story. Now this is the one most people recognize, and it's the one that comes from the British Royal Navy in the 19th century. As the story goes, the captain of the HMS Blazer reportedly introduced a navy blue jacket to smarten up his crew ahead of an inspection by Queen Victoria. Now, these jackets were typically navy, often double-breasted and finished with buttons that were originally made out of horn, but they later evolved into metallic buttons that we associate with blazers today, so brass and gold colours. Over time, the blazer became its own category. Traditionally solid in cover, most commonly navy. That's what we all sort of imagine. It is cleaner, it's more refined than a sports coat, but still it's not part of a matching suit. And this is where the blazer really shines. Where a sports coat says approachable, a blazer is a little bit of a step up. It says competent. It's more formal than a sports coat, but less formal than a suit. The fabric of a blazer is usually smoother, usually lighter, and the overall look is sharper and more intentional than a sports coat, which is a bit more rugged. Now, I'll be honest, I don't actually own a blazer. What I currently do own is a navy sports coat, but if I swap the buttons for brass or pearl, most people would probably call it a blazer. I think I could get away with that. And at some point, I would love to add a proper double-breasted jacket into my wardrobe. In terms of when you should wear a blazer, it works brilliantly for slightly more professional events, maybe work events, presentations, dinners, places where a sports coat might feel a bit too casual. You could even get away with this at a wedding. It signals authority, but without the stiffness that a lot of suits bring with them, a kind of relaxed competence. And because the buttons can be a bit flashier, I actually think blazers work particularly well for evening do's and functions, dates as well. You could get away with a blazer. So if a blazer is more formal than a sports coat, then the next step up is the suit. A suit is simply a jacket and trousers made from the same material, designed to be worn together as a set. And that matching element is what gives the suit its higher level of formality. Suits can be made from a range of materials. You've got linen for hot weather, wool for colder climates, cotton for somewhere in between. Now, of course, you'll also find synthetic fibers like polyester, especially in lower quality suits. One quick piece of advice though, don't just take a store's word for it when they call something a wool suit. I've been caught out by this before. Always check the inside label in the suit, You'd be surprised how many wool suits turn out to be 90% polyester, 10% wool. If you want warmth and breathability and longevity, 100% wool is the gold standard, so don't get caught out. Now, in terms of color and pattern, simpler is generally more formal, Black obviously is very formal, also the least versatile, Most men rarely get much use out of a black suit. If you're buying your first suit, I would recommend staying away from black, go for something like navy or gray, much more versatile. If you want to bring in patterns, I would suggest herringbone, subtle checks can work beautifully. Louder, high contrast patterns, they tend to be far less formal, so a suit being quite a formal piece of attire, you might want to stay away from louder patterns. Now, if you've been shopping for suits, you've probably come across these terms: off the rack, made to measure, and bespoke. Off the rack suits, it's exactly what it sounds like. They are mass produced, machine made, standard sizing. What you see is what you get. You have very little to no control over different elements like the lapel size, number of buttons, pockets, patches, things like that. The most important thing you should focus on when getting an off-the-rack suit is the shoulder fit, That's quite hard to adjust. Sleeve length, waist adjustments, they are a little bit more easy to fix, but make sure it fits in the shoulder. Made to measure, sometimes referred to as custom. This is cut from an existing pattern, but it's adjusted to your measurements, Here you get more control over details like the lapel width, vents, buttons, lining, pockets. Still mostly machine made, but the fit is much better. Also, so is the price. The price is way higher, and you'll probably need to wait weeks or months for something like this. Then we have bespoke. That's the top tier of suit. Nothing is cut from a pre-existing pattern. You're measured and the suit is built from scratch for your body. Here you have full control. It's usually a handmade suit, often with a house style that reflects where it's made, and I would lean into that if I was you. They tend to be one of a kind, Best fit, best quality, highest price, But which one is right for you? Obviously, if your body is changing, if you're gaining or losing weight, you don't want to be buying bespoke suits unless you have unlimited money or lots of it, in which case maybe your pocket can take the hit. but I would say save your money, go off the rack until your body sort of settles down. If you're gaining muscle, or maybe you're trying to lose a bit of weight, wait until you're at that ideal body shape to invest in more expensive suiting, because you'll get longer out of it. So when should you choose a suit over a sports coat or a blazer? I'll try and keep this really simple rule that I go by. If you think that not wearing a suit to a particular occasion would be seen as disrespectful, you wear a suit, okay? Very obvious occasions jump out at you: funerals, interviews, formal work meetings, important presentations. Everywhere else, you probably don't need one. You probably could go for blazer or sports coat. So folks, now you know the difference between a sport coat, a blazer, and a suit, and more importantly, when each one actually makes sense to wear. If this helped you figure out the differences, and if you learned something from this video, let me know down in the comments below. I want to know which one you reach for the most in your wardrobe. Are you a sport coat man? Do you like a blazer, or do you prefer the formality of the suit?